Thanks. Yeah.
And with that, also, Hired has some really great T-shirts here.
Oh yeah,
They took all the time and energy to bring them out here, so pick one on the way out. And with that, I'm going to give it up to our panel, and Meg, who will be moderating this evening.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Oh, so let's go ahead and kick it off. So I'm Meg Hewitt, and I'm helping Mark run this meetup. I work at NetSuite, and I run the business management or business development team at NetSuite. So I have 11 wonderful BDRs. Some few more here. So that's enough about me. Let's go ahead and let you know who's on the panel. And so just to start, we'll make some pretty quick introductions. So who you are, what you do at your company. Also, maybe if people aren't familiar with what your company does, a pretty simple description of what you guys do as a company, and then how you got to where you are in your career.
Sure.
Take it out.
Sure. So I'll start. My name is Justin Dignelli. I am Director of Sales here at SmartLink. For those who are not familiar with SmartLink, what we do is we help very large organizations translate and deploy multilingual content. So translate each other, new markets, and again, it's a technology platform. Before this, I worked in finance. Really, this is my first real role. I've been in the company almost for 4 years. I've seen it start when it was maybe 20 people, much larger now. So been a part of that growth, which is extremely exciting.
I'm Kevin. I manage the sales development team over at Greenhouse, which is a cloud-based recruiting software that works with companies like Uber, Airbnb, Pinterest. And before that, I actually moved from San Francisco to New York in December, and I was leading an inside sales team over at 5 Stars, which is loyalty software.
My name is Lee Zucker. I run our enterprise department at Single Platform, acquired by Constant Contact a couple years ago. Single Platform, we publish local business content across all the top publishers and apps online, so Google, Yahoo, Bing, Yelp, Foursquare, TripAdvisor. We work with local businesses to manage that content. Single Platform, team of 200 people, 50 or so SDRs throughout the inside sales and enterprise sales organization.
Cool. So everyone has probably their own definition of what a buyer persona even is. So via HubSpot, it is a fictional representation of the ideal customer base on who you sell to. So with that, do you agree with this definition, first of all? And then if so, who are the ideal customers that you guys are selling to? So who's your team prospecting into? And by role?
Sure. So I think that in the 3.5 years that I've been at SmartLink, what we learned was we were trying to sell to everyone and every type of company. And yes, we had success selling into every vertical because translation inherently is something that everybody needs. But what we found is that there are really 3 key verticals that we wanted to focus on. One was just IT, hardware, software. They make money off their website. We're looking to reach people that are looking to expand into who they reach out to. So that was a key vertical. And then the other one was consumer goods. So people that, again, are selling physical goods. So whether it's retail, consumer electronics, other beauty products, that was another key vertical. And then the last being hospitality and tourism. So airlines, hotels, cruise lines. Again, they're doing transactions on their site, and offering a localized experience had direct correlations to conversion rates, traffic, SEO. So there's a very key story that you can tell. So with that, in terms of buyer personas, I would advise anyone to always aim high. What we found is there were key people that were involved in the decision-making process. So for more technical organizations, we would go the route of a VP of product or VP of engineering or CTO, someone that was sort of owning the technical experience. They're a product-driven company. You're going to fill leaders in that area. Consumer goods and hospitality and tourism, it's more about customer acquisition. So you're dealing with a marketing person or a VP of e-commerce, and these people are concerned with integrations. They're concerned with growth. So I think that reaching out to those people, you can easily articulate your story, and I think we've had a lot of success with that personally.
Yeah, so by HubSpot's definition, it says that it's kind of a fictional thing, and I would say it's actually the opposite. It's as real as it gets. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, when you look at a lot of the companies out there, the first thing you definitely want to do, and there's been research done on this that shows that, is you definitely want to define your ICP, like your ideal customer profile. And the reason why you want to do that is because you don't want to kind of go on a spray and pray, because your software is not going to be the solution to everyone's problem. So after you do that, you kind of want to define, you know, are you going to go on like a top-to-bottom approach or a bottom-down? So it's, do I go for the CEO, or do I go for like the low-hanging fruit? You know, like so for us, it'd be like the recruiting coordinator, and then we have the managers, directors of talent acquisition, CFOs who tend to get involved, and the CEO. For us, the ultimate decision maker it varies based on company size. So if you're like between 0 to 50, you probably don't have a full-blown recruiting or HR team. So we tend to prospect the CEO. But if you become, you know, sort of more mid-market, between like 100 to 500, you start to get a recruiting team. The CEO is not as involved. He relies on the knowledge and intuition of the director of talent acquisition. So we'll definitely prospect that person, and that'll be our contact initially. But we have a very, very different approach than most companies. We actually reach out to, I'd say, not every single contact at the company, but we reach out to multiple people. But we have software that enables us to do that. So we use Outreach, and we can send a ton of emails to different points of contact at the company, and we've already defined what their pain points are. So we're not just kind of hitting everyone with the same email. So that's kind of our approach.
Don't want to beat a dead horse too much, but I think that one thing that we've learned, and the way that we define our buyer persona, is we look at the absolute core of our business and the prospects that we see like the absolute most value out of the single platform. So single platform provides rich content and name, address, phone number information to all the top sites online. So when you're searching, think about when you're searching around New York City or whatever, what is typically the type of business that you're looking for? It's like usually a restaurant, maybe like a salon or spa or yoga studio, maybe a gym or a auto body shop if you own a car in Manhattan. But like those are the key things, right? So what we've done is we've really focused, or what I've done is focused our business on specifically restaurants, figuring out that formula to get in touch with that main decision maker within restaurants, and then try replicating that across like other parts of the core, so other like industries that might have that. So I guess that would be just some advice that I would agree in a sense with the HubSpot definition, but truly that focus on the core, do all of your experimenting then, and then continue on to other verticals and other different types of businesses to find those personas.
Oh, yeah, I did want to mention, we're going to have a Q&A at the end, so definitely keep your questions. Good. So more directed questions, and Justin, for you. So in a lot of organizations, marketing plays a huge role in buyer personas and how that whole vision and type of messaging is created. How involved is your sales team in creating that messaging and aligning with marketing on that type of messaging?
Sure. So since I am director of sales, I like to think I am very involved. I might not, maybe marketing would think differently, but they're here, so just they're laughing when I see them. But I think it's been a joint effort. But I will say that our marketing team and our sales team work is partnership. And as I mentioned before, we have a lot of customers, a lot of different verticals, but it has very much been, you know, in my opinion, it'd be 70-30 sales versus marketing in terms of aligning those personas. And I think that the reason we're doing that is we know we can win in numerous verticals, but there are certain verticals that, along with certain personas that pay us the most money. They have high growth. You know, once we get them in, they're going to be even bigger. And again, it's sort of, we want to go the quickest route to get the most revenue. And you know, you can try to force a square peg through a round hole. I don't advise it. And again, we'd rather go after specific personas where people tend to buy, they tend to understand what we're talking about, they understand the value proposition. I would say another thing too for us is that, which has been a challenge, is translation. it seems like a very simple, straightforward thing. But translation has the ability to affect a lot of change throughout an entire organization. Therefore, if I get a director of marketing at a very large company to say, this is the best thing I've ever seen, they inherently have to ask another person above them, and they can't make a siloed decision. So what we found is, by going after C-level personas, people that can enact change, that is very much forward in our mission. And there's a lot for the deal size to really drastically increase too. So I'd say to round everything up here, it's been an aligned effort through sales and marketing to go after key people, people who can say yes and can create change in the organization.
So let's stick to that and the people that can say yes, right? When you do actually get that right contact information, and let's talk a little bit about the process of what is that type of messaging, and what do you think within your organization is a differentiator that stands the emails out that you're sending, the calls out that you're making, apart from the competition that you're competing with every day on the phone? What are the key differentiators?
This is me.
So you can start with Kevin and then they miss anything.
Yeah, so for us, like I mentioned before, I think, when you identify that buying persona, for us, we have the recruiting coordinators, assistants, executive assistants, CEOs, directors, talent acquisition, VPs even, and then the managers, is that everyone kind of has a different pain point. So we've spent a lot of time, especially recently, is trying to identify what those pain points are. And so for recruiting coordinator, they're not going to have the same KPIs or goals in their day-to-day as well as quarterly goals, because for a recruiting coordinator, their day-to-day is more around like scheduling, sourcing, and kind of handling the scheduling part. But like the CEO is going to look at how long does it take the time to hire? What's our hiring cost right now? How long does it take us to fill one position as opposed to the other? And the director of talent acquisition might look in between departments. Right, so for us, we actually develop every single one of those messages. So each person, whatever we define their role is, they go through like a 5-step campaign, and each single message identifies one of their specific challenges day to day. And we did a lot of research on our own, but we recently outsourced that to another firm to get us some more insights on different verticals, industries, just because we're trying to break beyond tech, which is about over 50% of our ARR right now. So we're trying to make that less and break into other verticals and diversify our portfolio. So it just really depends on how much bandwidth and time you guys have to do that research. We didn't, so we outsourced that. That was actually a trick. I asked a few of you guys, how many of you guys are familiar with like John Barrows? Yeah, so we actually did an SDR training with him. He, for himself, he used an outsourcing firm, I can tell you guys what it is after, to kind of identify these buying personas for the verticals that he was in, just to confirm them, and as well as the verticals that he was breaking into. And for us, we use a platform that enables us to do very high volume of emailing. So we send out per SDR per week is about 500 emails a day. That's about like 2,000 emails, and every single one of those are personalized based off of their role. So it's only helpful so for us, we use Salesforce and Outreach, so there's a bi-directional sync and integration. So we can we can come off as very, very personalized, but in reality, it's just one click for us. But I think the results, because before we were kind of sending everyone the same messaging, like Greenhouse's value proposition saying, hey, we can reduce the time to hire, we can get you better hiring decisions, get you better data. But the reality is not everyone's going to care about the same thing, and that not everyone's going to be using Greenhouse in the same way in terms of the day-to-day. So once you develop specific messaging based on their role, you're going to see the results definitely go up. That much I can guarantee you.
Do you want to add?
Sure. So I think reaching out to the C-levels is, regardless of whether it's the VP of marketing, director of marketing, or VP or director level making decision, it's the C-level that eventually has to have the signature on the contract. To get in touch with the highest level person possible, I think it's actually pretty simple. Simplicity in emails, non-branded emails, so emails that don't look like marketing emails, persistence. So follow up on your emails and literally just following up on my email below, just following up on my email below, continuous follow up, and then one simple value point in every email. What that will do is if that value point resonates, they'll forward it along to someone that's a little more junior, maybe a VP, maybe a director, maybe less. What I like to do to continue to keep the C-level involved in what I teach my SDRs and sales reps is after you get pushed down from the C-level and you have a meeting with the manager, director, VP level, email that C-level again and be like, hey, just want to let you know what I went over with so-and-so. These are the 3 key points. These are our next steps. This is when we're meeting again. Would love for you to join the call. After the next call, go ahead and do it again. Hey, just want to let you know, I had a follow-up with so-and-so. We have another call scheduled here. Would love for you to join the call. Next call, so on, so on, so on. So when the contract comes across their desk, they're totally in the know, or hopefully they join one of the calls because they're the ultimate decision maker.
Yeah, sure. So I would say that when it comes to prospecting, I think, and prospecting and sales, it's kind of like putting a puzzle together. And the smartest, most successful salespeople, they have the ability to recognize the pieces and see pieces that people otherwise may not. And I think being an SDR or just prospecting, right? Because getting your quota as a salesperson, you better believe that they're prospecting, not just getting inbound leads. And I think that the same thing can be said for an SDR. And I think it's about having a strategy, right? How are you going about, reaching out to people? For me personally, because I still prospect because I personally enjoy it, it's about navigating an organization, right? And a lot of times what I do is, simply mutual contact of Joe Schmo, Schmo, like, hey, I'm reaching out. I notice you and I are connected via LinkedIn. They don't know if I'm best friends with this person or I'm just bumped into them at a conference, but things like that where you can create a connection. You're not just another salesperson. Now that I've moved into a different role, I now get prospected, I connect with people, but every salesperson starts to sound the same, every email starts to look the same. So you have to stand out, you have to be important, you have to hold yourself accountable and provide value, right? You are a consultant, you're not a salesperson with a quota. I think most people find that annoying. So I would kind of advise that. Consider yourself a consultant and use your time wisely.
I love that. That's great feedback. It's definitely those short, concise messages we've found within the BDR organization at NetSuite. People are reading on their phones. They're not sitting by their phones necessarily all day anymore. I haven't checked my voicemail box since I got the job. So anyone's prospecting, I haven't called back. So with the calling aspect, with all that, there's also this cold calling's dead, right? There's this quote that we always hear. So speaking to that, do you pick up phone calls anymore? If you do, how? Talk about the first 10 seconds of the call. Like, what makes a difference? What's going to make someone stand out over the phone? And then also, what is your preferred mode of communication?
Sure. So I do get cold calls. I just pick up my phone and sell, so I always assume that someone's calling me for some important reason, which I'm starting to realize maybe that's not always the case. But what I would say is that I do listen. I give them a chance because I've been on the other end of the phone. But the people that I listen to are people that understand what would be important to me. So I get calls from recruiters saying, hey, I noticed you hired 4 people in the past 3 months. I noticed that you have 2 open availabilities. Are you looking to grow the team? How quick are you looking to grow the team? Are you having challenges there? Someone said, I have a great candidate. I'd love to share that with you. Would you be interested in seeing that? So, sure, yeah. I would love to find this amazing candidate. So I think if you know about my business and you know about yours, and you can talk about how there can be a mutual synergy, there's no reason for me not to listen. So I think cold calling to me is the #1 most effective thing. There's a guy in my team who's an absolute animal, and he's put everyone to shame because he's on the phone, he knows what to do, and he's got more meetings than I think our entire team combined, and his pipeline is healthy. So,
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, for me, I definitely get calls all the time, and I answer them because one, like you mentioned, we've all been on the other end of the phone, so I like to be respectful of them. But for me, another thing is I like to listen to the beginning of their pitch, just so I can always take notes. And if I hear a really good one, I'll kind of pass it off to my team so then they can try it out. So that's always a good one. And For kind of the cold calling is dead aspect, I'm kind of a big believer in that, and I think there's a lot of formulas to success. I don't think, cold calling still works for some people, but for me it's like, the time it takes you to make 100 calls, I can send out 1,000 emails and I'll probably get more in return. But for us, for the calls that we make, right now we make about 25, but we're not calling people who have never heard of Greenhouse. We call people who we know, so with Outreach, I keep mentioning Outreach, but it's great software, you guys should definitely check it out. We have an integration with Salesforce, so the only people we're calling, we set a call task and it's enabled automatically, is if they've opened our email 5 times. So you can bet when we call them, they're definitely interested, but we don't go and call and say like, hey, I know you opened my email 5 times, like we know you're interested. We go in with a very warm approach and it's like, hey, I sent you an email, would love to kind of get your thoughts on it. Most of the time they were just like, oh yeah, I was kind of meaning to get back to you, but I haven't got a chance yet. Because we know that they've opened it 5 times, we're very selective in our calls, so I would kind of consider it warm calls, not necessarily cold calls. So.
Totally disagree with cold calling being dead. I think it's the way that we built our entire business. We have our SDRs on the phone for 200 minutes a day cold calling. And they set up hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of meetings a week. So I think that for a small business style sale, like that works. I think for a larger style sale, the combination between cold calling and cold emailing works because then you could go ahead and reference, hey, I just emailed you, wanted to follow up on that. But I think cold calling is unbelievably effective. And as far as cold calling to me, like Justin said, I always answer my phone. I always think it's a sale coming in or something important. So, and for me, that's total proof that if I'm going to call someone within the organization, and typically, if it's like a C-suite that doesn't answer their phone, I'll call someone who never usually has their phone ring. Then their phone rings, they answer that, oh my God, sorry, wrong number. I meant to talk to John, no, your CEO. Can you transfer me? And they'll have a transfer. And we've gotten in a few times that way. But totally think cold calling is a useful practice. And I think that the combination between cold calling, cold emailing, and following up on an email with a cold call will get you really far.
Yeah, just one more. I do agree with you. It's kind of, you have to figure out what space you're calling into. Because at my last company, 5 Stars, we were selling like SMB mom and pop shops, like Yelp. Like they don't really check their email. They're at the register, they're answering the phones all day. So really figuring out what target you're going into is going to help you figure out your approach. So.
And I don't think cold calling is dead, just to clarify. I love calling. And a lot of my team supports enterprise businesses over $2 billion, so they're reaching out to, the CEO of eBay, for example. So that's a different type of cold call than a mom and pop shop. So definitely working with phone systems is key, and it gets to be quite a puzzle in the game. So cool, thanks for that. So I think it's best to open it up to questions for you guys. They've been talking. I'm sure you guys have some ideas as to what you're interested in hearing more about. You can speak to each of them individually, ask questions to the group. Let's just try to keep questions generally short, and then also answers nice and short as well. This was the first hand I saw. First hand I saw.
Hey, Jonathan. Hi, David. If you could elaborate a little bit about your process for defining those profiles from the get-go. I think once we have them established, you target them, but how do you go about and define those profiles from the beginning?
Sure. So I think about, as we look at our land customers, we would say, okay, who would, kind of going back through the sales and sort of understanding, okay, who was involved, who was the signer, so product-oriented companies, VP of product tends to be involved, maybe the CEO, co-founder, somebody in that level. Moving into the other verticals, we realized it was in fact someone else, it was coming from their budget. I think for us, a big part of what we do, it's not budgeted for at all. And again, that's another reason why you need to find someone, VP of e-commerce, VP of marketing, move it up to a CMO, a COO level, and really, again, who's going to free up the budget. So I think that's really how we went about it. I mean, you know, I don't want to take no from someone who can't say yes, and we definitely subscribe to that.
Were you referencing finding who's the actual key decision maker, or how do I go about like prospecting them, finding the contact information, or?
Well, I think more about maybe defining your profiles, right? For maybe your first 100 accounts, right? The first 100 accounts that you had, and you had to define maybe the verticals or persona that you want to pursue. How do you go about defining those very first, maybe first 100 customers? Which ones you want to target?
Yeah, so I think going through your first 100 customers, the initial, let's say the initial 10 is just going to be trial and error, because the 10 that you think you're going to go after might not be the 10 buyers, and you're like, oh, I never thought of this. It's actually these 10 people. So once you define, you know, the first 10, I always, you know, I read a lot of blogs, and they say the first 10 is never going to be your second 10. The second 10 people that you go after is actually going to be the buyers, and then go after those 10. So for Greenhouse, you know, once we figured out who was actually would be using our software, where were we kind of hitting home, like who had actual pain points that we could solve, then we kind of go after that. So.
Hi. So when I saw the topic about defining sales personas and how to sell each type of persona, I was kind of more thinking in a more generic sense that like some people are, you know, the best thing I can describe is there's New York and the Chicago personalities. And, you know, it's a very different type of person and takes a very different approach to call on someone in the Midwest as opposed to someone in this fast-paced environment of here. And I'm not sure if you've broken down your environment like that or if you have other stratifications of different personality types, and I'd love to hear about something other than Chicago and New York types.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, sure.
I'm a Chicago guy, and I now live in New York, so that's perfect. Cubs 6 in a row, and Mets, congratulations, 5 in a row as well. Good to see. So for us, I like to place sales reps. If I'm going to regionalize sales reps, I like placing them with like personalities that I feel like would match like that region. But I think I think that your SDR or your sales rep, like the way you define a talented SDR or sales rep, is based on being almost like being able to morph to that personality in a way. So people buy from people they like people like themselves, and people like people they aspire to be. So that means like you want to be like the person that you're trying to sell to, and vice versa. But you also want to be that expert. And as a good salesperson or a good SDR, you become that expert. So I guess the best way I would answer that question is enable your SDRs and enable your sales reps to be the expert in their industry and be comfortable morphing to whatever type of person they're speaking with. A lot of times that comes through questions and asking questions based on what types of services they looked at before, how do you typically make decisions, are you the person to make the ultimate decision? There's a great book called Spin Selling, I don't know if any of you have heard of it. It really elaborates on that idea of asking different types of questions to add value into your process. And I think by asking questions and giving your SDRs and sales reps the ability to be the experts, they can kind of morph to any personality.
Thank you all. Kevin, this is for you. We are a fairly new company, and we started using outreach, and we had no success with it. We have heard great things, so it's just interesting to hear that you guys are really successful with it. I definitely see the benefit, but I'm not sure. Maybe it's because we didn't have a ton of contacts when we first started. It was definitely useful, but we pretty much sent emails manually, so it's time consuming. So just, I don't know if you want to have a separate conversation.
Let's do that one. Okay, let's do that one off. Let's do more questions generally about the buyer persona, but great question, and definitely other people have questions about outreach.
Okay.
That's an awesome, side conversation. Who's next?
Could you discuss a little bit about talking with people in Europe? I find when I talk to them, some of them are more engaged and willing to talk a little bit longer on the phone. I'm talking with someone in Cyprus and someone in England. The conversation goes a lot differently. Can you guys cover international a little bit?
with that, we, as you might imagine, get leads from all over the world. And at some point we didn't have territory, so I got to cover really the world, which is a good thing and a bad thing. And I felt like for us, again, our average price point is about $30,000 for the year. It's since moved up to more like $80,000. And again, it's annual terms in advance. What I found that was outside of London or outside of England, it was oftentimes a challenging conversation. They didn't want to pay for it. Free 1 month out. Why would anyone pay this much money? And honestly, it's not a good use of my time. That was just my personal sense. In England, I don't know if it's just the economy. They're willing to pay more. They understand you have to pay. You get what you pay for. I find that so. When I was a rep, I focused heavily on companies based out of North America. That was just my take. I can't speak too much more. I'd be happy to speak about it offline. And Daron absolutely fields quite a few of those kind of leads. But it all depends on who it is.
Yes. That brings buyer personas full effect, right? When you think about buyer personas, it's kind of like personas in a particular country. What do they care about? So, yeah, that's what you're doing. Do any of you want to speak to that?
I think there's 5
Any more questions?
Yeah, I think there's a couple more.
Hey guys, my name is Rob Wally with Mask Mobile. So we enable the ability for you to have your work phone and your personal phone on the same device, one single cell phone, and it has all the enterprise functions. We're building out our sales team right now and considering having an SDR. My question is actually to all three of you. I heard two different approaches. I heard you were using a lot of emails, the 5 clicks, then you call, whereas your guys lead, they're making 200 calls a day. Just here in terms of outcomes, how many meetings are you making, per SDR per week? What does it look like across the board?
Yeah. What are those metrics that they're responsible for or measured on?
Sure. So I think I'll speak to it a little differently. For sales people, I'm asking them to set 2 meetings a week. And again, it's I want them to get in touch with the right people. The idea is that I want them, you think about how you create a pipeline. You have rabbit, you have deer, you have elephant. And I've asked them to go after as many deer as possible and a few elephant here and there, let the rabbits come in and out. So that's sort of my strategy, but it definitely, I would assume, depends on your deal size, what that looks like.
Yeah, so for the email versus call thing, I think you first have to identify your market, but for us, the reason why we chose email and continue to scale it is because, for starters, I actually got this one from Kyle Fred on the back. It was a phenomenal idea. We threw this field in Salesforce called a conversion event trigger. So anytime someone had to convert a lead into an opportunity, they had to say, was it a cold call, was it a LinkedIn email, or was it an email? And for us, we did a week of straight calling and emails. The emails just trumped it. And so that's the reason why we kept scaling that way, and the numbers proved it. So for us, each SDR right now is setting up anywhere between 20 to 30 raw opportunities, and that's just by clicking convert. That's the SDR deeming it qualified, but we have another stage, and this is how SDRs get compensated, is that the account executive has to say that the demo went well, it was a very qualified demo, so that's a sales qualified opportunity. So let's just say out of the 20 to 30 raw opportunities, we have about 15 to 25 sales qualified opportunities per rep per month.
Got it. I just wanted to make sure that wasn't per week. 20 to 30 per month per SDR.
Yep.
I have a little bit higher numbers. I have about 10 meetings a week for my enterprise SDRs, and then we have about between 30 and 40 a week for small business SDRs. Now, the way that I think it might be a little easier to go through context with why the numbers are relatively high. So for our small business team, they're trying to reach out to owners and get in touch with owners. On the enterprise side, we have a relatively unique. It's the reason why I'm such a big supporter of cold calls, but we have an interesting entryway in where we pretty much will call the general line of an enterprise. and ask the receptionist to help us out and lead us through that phone tree. By going through the phone tree and getting transfer to transfer to transfer, we found that we had a greater success of getting in touch with the actual decision maker and just calling them straight right away, because there's like, I don't know, in your organizations if you have different rings based on if it's a transfer, internal dial, or whatnot. But going through that tree, one, you'll find out if the person you thought was the decision maker is actually the decision maker, or two, you'll have a better chance of getting in touch with them.
Yeah, in terms of like phone trees, if you guys decide to go with the call model, like phone trees suck, I think we've all been there. There's software out there like data.com that will give you it'll enrich your Salesforce data, and it'll give you like the direct lines, so we can skip the phone trees.
But doesn't that hurt because of what he was saying by the different rings that come through if it's an internal transfer versus a direct dial from the outside?
Two different.
Yeah, two different methods, for us it's just like efficiency and just connecting, and then we'll kind of let the SDR take it from there, because I think the most important thing is the first 10 seconds of the call is the most important.
And I was just gonna, my BDR team per quarter, depends on their vertical. Actually, we put their goals by vertical and how well we do in that vertical, and also what the inbound lead flow is on the inbound side. And that kind of converts into how many opportunities we think they can generate on the outbound side. So the range is anywhere from 12 in the 16 in the enterprise space up to about 40. And that's actually per quarter.
Something helpful too, sorry, we don't qualify it as a meeting unless it's director level or above.
Right, so there's so many different qualifications that go into each piece as well. Yeah. This hand is first up.
When you factor in the costs, and everybody has different costs, you've got your software, your people, what's your cost per meeting?
I'll be honest, I have no idea.
That's not good. But that's weak.
Yeah, definitely. That's something probably.
You got to know that stuff.
When we bring on a sales analyst, we probably will. We just didn't have bandwidth like when you're a startup. So.
I have an answer to the question. It's not a perfect answer. Someone probably has that, but we recently went through an exercise where we evaluated the different tools and softwares that we were going to allow both the SDR team to use and the sales team to use, and we broke it out to a per user cost. And what we found is that we evaluated different solutions, and it would cost about $4,000 to allow each rep, each SDR to engage in a year. So what we believe they'd have to pay is $4,000 per person to be successful for the year. Now, again, I am a big believer in there's a lot of ways to automate things, but I think that the people that are successful, they were successful when there were no tools. And again, maybe it's just an archaic way of thinking of things, and I guess we're trying to get less leads that are more qualified, that are going to pay us more money. But I think you have to give the right tools to those people.
Yeah, a perennial concern with lead generation is the quality of leads. What are the main sales processes that you implement to ensure that you have consistent quality or qualified leads?
Keep them short, you can all say something.
Yeah, so I think that's relatively difficult, but now there are tools like overseas, Philippines, India, to have like small teams actually go through and you give them qualifications of what you want. Once you've decided like these are the qualifications for my leads, as those leads come in or as people generate them, you can go through and have them, if it's a mass dump of leads, or if it's not and your SDRs are self-prospecting and not just cold calling or cold emailing in front of all of them. What we've done is we've created a template based on what we feel converts at the absolute highest into a quality meeting and then a quality account, and they have to check off all those boxes before they actually set that meeting.
Yeah, and for us, for the SDRs to kind of executive handoff, it's just all about like incentivizing the right behavior. So we have two metrics, as mentioned before. It's opportunities, but we don't really care about how many opportunities you create. It's how many sales qualified opportunities, which is solely up to the AE. The AE will define, okay, did this person really have a timeline within 6 months? Were they a decision maker? And so once you define that, if the SDRs aren't hitting their sales qualified opportunity quota, they're going to know to kind of change their behavior on the spot and like prospect in the right areas where they can generate quality deals.
I'd say ours is pretty straightforward. We have 8 key criteria. 5 out of 8 of those criteria is considered a sales-ready lead. If you can get 8 out of 8 of those criteria, it becomes a sales qualified opportunity, which needs to be dollarized. That also needs to go through myself and the VP, and we can reject or approve those. So if we see the description is, can they afford it? And it's like, sure, yeah, they just, they have 30 people at the company, I'm rejecting that. So.
And to speak to that, a lot of people use different acronyms. Like we use ANAM or BANT, right? A lot of people use this. And so that's at a very high level. We dive a lot deeper into those different sections. And so as a business development rep, they're expected to know a certain amount of that information going into the next call. If they don't have enough information, it doesn't get to the sales rep. It doesn't get to that next step to ever become a dollar amount. So we actually disqualify a lot based on them not being a good fit, but also not getting the right information. Awesome.
This is a quote call for one where we're not asking a question.
Yeah.
But just I guess in closing, give us an example of one of your buyer personas. You wouldn't mind sharing something that you use specifically in terms of what you're doing as an SDR or SDR manager.
A VP of e-commerce. I think being in New York, we reach out to a lot of retail companies. So I'd say the VP of e-commerce and coach would be a really good persona.
And how detailed do you get in terms of demographics or information about a particular type of persona or character you create?
I think that looking back about where that person has been, for a big part of us is understanding the previous technology that they may have invested in. So are they, more of an on-premise type of person? Are they forward-thinking, going to cloud and using, something like Demandware? Do they have money tolerance? Or this is someone who's made a, high dollar amount purchase? Have they been in an organization that's been a global organization? So am I educating this person, or am I consulting this person about, hey, there's a better way to do things? So I think that would be my approach, and that's what I'm teaching my team, and I know Jerome is doing a very similar thing.
Yeah, so for us, we've been having a lot of success with our CEO persona. And so their initial email that we send them, it's the call to action is just asking if they can reference us in the right direction because we know they're busy. And so if you're the director of talent acquisition, CEO forwards your email, you're definitely not going to just hit archive or delete. You're going to respond to either the SDR or the AE, or you're going to respond back to CEO saying, hey, I don't think it's a good fit. But before that, we'll kind of reference, we have this kind of infographic where we talk about, hey, just check out what other CEOs are saying about Greenhouse, and they're probably going to be interested in seeing that. Once they click that, they find that interesting, they'll point us in the right direction. And on the other hand, we'll reference, one of our clients that says, we reduced their time to hiring cost by this much, and it was quoted by their CEO, and we said, as a CEO, we know those are metrics that you care about, see how we're doing that for other companies as well. But we never asked for the meeting with the CEO directly, we just mentioned, can you point us in the right direction, which they typically do. Because they won't even respond, they'll just forward it, and that person will reach out.
Yeah, there was just one more. I'm so sorry. I told you to put your hand down earlier, and then I didn't let you go.
Thanks.
Of course.
More on the buyer persona. I think where you were actually going was it's not just the profile of a specific person, like whatever CMO or whatever. It's further qualified by the type of organization, the type of vertical. Right, so and that kind of leads into the tension you're going to get between marketing and sales, right? Because as sales, you guys are on the hook to actually get progress, right? Get advances in calls. That can only happen if even if you reach the best CMO in the world, if their firm is in an industry that doesn't care about your product or doesn't have there isn't a proposition, it's not going to work. So. It seems to me that the buyer persona isn't just the type of person, but it's also tied into the vertical, the size of the company, the minimum revenues. I mean, there's a whole bunch of dimensions, right? And to the extent you can define those dimensions together, it kind of helps marketing and sales kind of communicate better and ultimately, succeed better, right? Thoughts?
Great way to end. That's perfect. Any
I agree.
thoughts on that? I agree.
Yeah, so I think, in practice, that's difficult to answer, but one of our biggest things right now that we're working on in Q3 and Q4 is predictive analytics and lead scoring. It's a little bit more expensive, and you have to kind of get past that initial stage, because it's not cheap, but what we're doing now is, because we know it's far beyond just buying personas, like we can get the director of talent acquisition who's, it's on paper, they're going to be a good fit, but their industry just isn't fit for us, right? So I recommend if that's kind of the problem you're facing, look into predictive analytics and lead scoring. And if you guys don't have the revenue for that or the budget for that allocated, I'd recommend looking into a Salesforce admin, a very talented one, who can craft up a model with like Apex Code or something in Salesforce. It'll be like a Janky version, but it definitely works. I've seen it done before. So
I would say that that's absolutely our strategy, and part of the reason we broke into different verticals was that we used to have salespeople that would cover all three. And I think I'm a big believer in the SDRs and the salespeople knowing as much about the client's business as they do, if not more. And asking someone to know the needs of an IT organization, a consumer goods organization, or a travel hospitality organization is just impossible. So breaking into verticals allows each of our team members to become relative experts, and then I think it's gone a long way. You can definitely see the people that are hitting their quota, whether SDRs or salespeople, far and away have the most knowledge. They can have that, elevated conversation where you're talking strategically, you're not talking features.
Great. Perfect. All right. Awesome. Thank you guys very, very much. So, yeah, thank you guys for coming. I'm going to hand it over to Mark, and he'll close us out completely, but appreciate all your questions as well. Those are really nice.
Awesome job, Meg. And just another round of applause for our awesome panel. Thanks for being one of the things I'd say is, share the community, share this event with folks in your organizations and other folks that you know that are in SDR, BDR type roles. We're always looking to expand just the number of people that can be part of this community. The other thing is that we do this once a month, so every first Wednesday, so expect to see announcements for the next meetup, that first week in September. Obviously, I think it's right after Labor Day, but hopefully everyone's back in full swing and recovered by the time our next Wednesday meetup is in session. And we're still kind of figuring out what our next few topics are going to be. But again, this is a community, so if there's topics that you're really, really interested in, just have a burning desire for us to cover, let us know. Let Meg know, Daron, Kyle, myself, and we definitely want to get to those. And one last shout out to our wonderful sponsor, SmartLink, for the space, for Hire, for being such an awesome sponsor. Make sure you grab a t-shirt. Make sure to talk to Steph over there if you're interested in learning more about Hire and how they can help you find a really, really awesome sales job. And with that, thank you so much.